Okay, hello everybody. My name is Stephen Shaughnessy. I work for the Berkeley Chess School, and I ran a tournament 2 weekends ago in Pleasanton, California. And at these tournaments, I sometimes like to offer a special prize. If a student plays a great game, I'll give them a special trophy. This is an example of the best game trophy, so it's a little bigger than the first place trophies for our quads. And the kids really are motivated to write down their games and play a great game and share it with me. So I have 5 games that I'd like to share with you, and then I'd like your opinion about which is the best game out of all those, who will get the trophy. So the first game was played by a young man named Kushal, who's an avid chess player, but he's just started playing chess relatively recently. And I want to share this beautiful short game with you. He was playing for black here. I'm not going to name his opponent. Kushal's here playing for black against e4. And he chose to play the Caro-Kann. And as I recommend to my students, get your second center pawn 2 steps forward if you can, and black plays pawn to d5, attacking the pawn. And the typical way to defend the pawn is to guard it with your knight, but you can also push the pawn. But in this game, white decided to protect the pawn with his knight. And Kushal decided to trade and then develop with a threat. And I was a little surprised by this move. I know some chess traps where white lures black into capturing the pawn on d4. But in this game, white chose to capture the knight. And Kushal could capture with his knight's pawn or his king's pawn. Which one would you capture with? It's a debate. If you're worried about your king's safety on the open file, you might choose your king's knight's pawn, but capturing this way keeps the pawns together, releases the bishop and the queen a bit more, and we're going to castle our king soon. So he kept his pawns together and releases the bishop. And now white made what I consider the first mistake of the game. He made another pawn move. Make as few pawn moves as possible is opening principle number 5. According to Reuben Fine in his book Chess the Easy Way, make as few pawn moves as possible. Black makes another pawn move. How does Kushal punish this? By making another pawn move. But his move makes a threat, double attacking the center pawn. And if white captures black, white is really helping black. Black could trade queens and then develop the bishop. If you have to move your king, you can't castle. So white decided to guard the pawn. And Kushal keeps up the pressure by triple attacking the pawn. Now there's 1, 2, 3 attackers and only 2 defenders. And white could guard the pawn a third time with bishop to e3, and since hindsight's 20/20, that's what he should have done. Instead, he thought he could paralyze one of the attackers with this pin, and this is the first significant mistake of the game. It is black to move here. What should black play? And Kushal found it. It's a tactic. Tactics are suggested by unguarded pieces. They're called loose pieces. The king is always a potential target. How could black attack both the unguarded bishop and the king? Answer, queen a5, and Kushal finds it with check, and he's going to win the bishop. In other situations, there might be a white knight that could be developed to save the king and guard the bishop, but not here. So this really wins a piece. Kushal has the advantage now, and he captures the bishop. And here, white helps black another time and another way by capturing. He allows black to develop the bishop to a very powerful position where it's pointing at this pawn diagonally from the king, the square of doom. So that really helped black, black is now able to develop the bishop, and he's able to castle quickly. So you can see the tide is turning here, or the momentum is building here for black. He's now got 3 pieces developed compared to only 1 for white. So white now does develop the queen, chose to the c2 square, and black castles. Castle early, castle often. Bishop e3. I would say this is another problem for white because black is now able to trade pieces. When materially had trade pieces, he also creates an isolated pawn. But I can understand why he did this. He's about to suffer from a check, and he can't castle in this move because you can't castle through check. So it's understandable he's trying to block the e-file, but Kushal ruthlessly trades bishops, creating an isolated pawn and a target for attack. Rooks smile and open files. Kings do not. So he sweeps his king to safety. And here, my instinct was take the pawn. Why not take the pawn? Kushal found something else. He developed his bishop with a threat to the queen. And his opponent probably said, okay, well, I can move my queen and hold that pawn. But now Kushal pivots towards the center. More force. Here comes the horse. And he's threatening to play knight to d3, which would be a royal fork, and black would have to give up the exchange in order to stop the royal fork. So white chose to trade. And we have an interesting recapture here, an interesting choice. Should black recapture with the pawn, the rook, or the queen? What about capturing with the pawn and undoubling your pawns and bringing a pawn to the center? The problem is then this bishop won't be guarded. So that would lose a bishop and give the piece back to white. So Kushal captured. Would you capture with your rook or your queen? I was thinking rook. Be careful of back rank mates, but there's no back rank, so I was thinking take with the rook. But Kushal chose to capture with the queen, which turned out to be better. He's building a powerful battery onto the underdefended e3 pawn. And something else as well. But white saw the threat to the pawn, and white met the threat with rook on h to e1. And now the winning move. Can you find the winning move here for Kushal at our Pleasanton quad? March 1st, 2025. We have them every month. The winning move here is queen to e4. Winning because the threat cannot be met. The threat is queen to b1 check. White tried to give black a problem, but Kushal swiftly played queen b1 check, and white resigned. The only legal move would be king d2, and then we have checkmate in 1, queen c2 checkmate. So I was playing around a bit here because I wanted to see if actually there was any defense at all to this threat. And I found one idea. The only idea, the best idea, is to move the rook on e to f1. And you might say, how does that fix anything? Well, it gives the king somewhere to hide. He won't get trapped on d2. It also threatens to take the bishop and undo the attack. But black still has a wonderful continuation here I'll share with you. He can still play queen b1, check. And then queen to d3 is a choice here. We're going to see another choice later. We're going to circle back to this position. But check gives him a chance to lose. How could white lose? He could lose by putting his king back, setting up for the next game, you might say, because this game's over. Black to move. Only move, and then we have the epaulets mate, where these rooks act like the decorations on the general's shoulder. He's trapped by his own rooks. So that's why queen b1 and then queen d3, giving him a chance to lose. He might not do that, so we have another way to get him. Get back there. And now we have rook on a to d8. You'll find it's almost miraculous when you use your last piece. That's when your attack becomes unstoppable. Check. And I can't go here because that deprives this rook of the defense of his other rook, and we get checkmated. So he has to go here. And what should black do to continue the attack? Queen c2. Again, gives him a chance to lose. If king e1, we have checkmate or checkmate. Let's use the rook. And if the king comes out, we simply get another piece. And our queen is protected by the bishop. If they trade queens, the bishop will still guard the white rook. Now black has an overwhelming advantage ahead by a rook and a bishop, and 6 pawns and 6 pawns, a rook and a bishop. And this is a curious... I've heard of Alekine's gun with a queen and 2 rooks. This is not a very powerful weapon for white. So that is the first game. There was 5 submissions. This is the first one by Kushal. And I'm going to share the next 4 games in 4 more short videos so we can eventually choose the best of the 5 submissions at our Pleasanton Quad's best game tournament, best game competition.